Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's show. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Laura Comark, web designer, evergreen system, and funnel integration expert for coaches and consultants who love their work but not their tech. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Robyn Roste. Robyn's mission is to help maxed out freelancers set up smart marketing that gives them back time, resources, and much needed brain space so they can live the life they started their business for. With more than a decade of experience in marketing, communications, and strategic planning, both in corporate and freelance settings, Robyn values authenticity, problem solving, and the anti-hustle lifestyle. Robyn, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about the backstory of how you got to be where you are today?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I started out with the goal of wanting to be a freelancer, like full-time freelancer. And I've learned over the past couple of years that's not everyone's goal, which is a surprise to me, because that's always something I love the idea of this like flexible, work when you are available, don't work when you're not, work from anywhere. And I guess it was, pre everyone working remote. So it was kind of this like big dream I had on my vision board. But then I got a corporate job at a not-for-profit, and I really enjoyed it and stayed there for a long, long time. And yeah, but never lost that like desire to be a freelancer. So then one day I just was like, I got to get serious about this. And I built myself like what I like to call a bridge, so that I could kind of step out on my own and achieve my goal of becoming a full-time freelancer. So that's like the very short nutshell version.
I love that. And it's always been interesting since we've met. We've been in a mastermind together for, over a year now. And
I
it's been
think.
amazing. We've met in
Yeah.
person a few times, which is super fun. Thank you. Shout out to Sarah Massey for connecting me with so many amazing women.
Mhm.
Um, Freelancer wasn't necessarily a word that I was really familiar with. And I don't know if it was just the industry I was in corporate, where I wasn't surrounded by freelancers. I wasn't in marketing. I worked for an agricultural lending company. I don't know that freelancer was in the vocabulary there. So it's interesting. Like, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business. So when you say freelancer, what does that word like mean to you?
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny because I knew the word entrepreneur or business owner, but that was never something that was interesting to me. Although I would say now on the other side that freelancer is actually the same thing. You're running a business, you're basically doing everything that a business owner would do. You file taxes in the same way. You run the show professionally, just like a entrepreneur would. So I think when I thought of freelancer, I started off in journalism. So maybe I should set that stage. And pitching and freelancing was very, very normal in that industry, or is very normal. You often have a side hustle off the, corner of your desk. You're just always, working up new angles or trying new things. So it's this entrepreneurial spirit. But I think because most people will have a day job at the same time, you don't think about it as having a separate business. So then, freelancer to me was just something that I could follow my curiosity, but I wasn't totally committed to this one path. And maybe I felt like calling myself an entrepreneur was a little bit more restraining or something. I'm not sure. It was definitely a mental, like something in my brain that was like a freelancer is different. It's not as heavy or something as an entrepreneur.
Oh, I love that. So when you're saying that you're helping maxed out freelancers, what typically kind of work are the freelancers that you're working with? What type of work are they doing?
I mean, a lot of them are freelance writers. I think that's just natural because that's where I have been specialized for a long time. But there's others. There's photographers, graphic designers, web developers, UX people. I don't know what are they, what designers, I guess. That kind. So I guess anyone kind of in digital media, I would say, is a really like familiar person in my freelancing circle. And those are the kind of people that I see hustling so hard every day, and they have tons and tons of talent, and yet they are not earning the income that they could be earning. They're working, constantly,
Mm.
10, 12, 15-hour days. And I just see like there's things we can do to help you like get out of this like cycle. And so that's what I've become really passionate about.
I love that. Yeah, the undercharging, over delivering,
Mhm.
working way too many hours, not putting in place boundaries. Like, I feel like that's something that I know I struggled with when I was first starting out in my entrepreneurial journey. And it's tough. Also, when you're doing so many tasks manually on the back end,
Yeah.
because I know you're a systems person like I am,
Yep.
with really getting processes put in place and set up for people. Can we talk a little bit about what you kind of how you help people in that way?
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, like systems is I'm learning like not a welcome term in every circle. And but I am a systems person. I see so much like even though I guess I saw the term entrepreneur as restrictive, I don't see systems as restrictive, even though a lot of people do. I see it as like freedom building. Um, I'm sure you do too, Laura.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because you take your messy manual on paper or whatever process and you dump it into some sort of uh, I don't know, automation or just some sort of something that digital that makes sense. Or it doesn't even have to be digital, actually, but just you put it in a framework that makes sense. And then it just works. Like you have to trust it, you have to trust the process. And if you can do that, it just works. And it's amazing how much time it gives you back. And yeah, so I think when I first discovered how amazing systems were, like I just kind of went all in and like, yeah, that became my like focus.
What I love talking tech, as you know. What are
Mhm.
some of your favorite tech tools?
Well, I think for me, I think the thing I'm most on people about is project management systems. I think that's my biggest, like, you need to get all of this into software that like will keep track and tell you when to do things and give you deadlines. Keep all your notes together and keep organized and also like show other people like you can share it easily with someone else so they can see what where you're at with this task too. And that's the thing I'm the most passionate about, probably because I see so many people just not relying or not even using one. They just have their to-do list, which I have to-do lists too, but this is just so much greater. It can do so much for you that you don't even realize yet.
Well, yeah, I know so many people who will try to just keep everything up in their head. And the problem with that is one, you can like we're not meant to carry the mental load that we have going on at all times at this point in life. Like there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things to remember. I know for me, if it's not, I'm at the point now, I have two young kids. Like I have a household I'm running. I have a husband I'm making sure all his business stuff is like taken care of. Got to make sure we have all the groceries we need. Have to make sure meals are ordered. Like there's a lot of things going on. Plus I have a business I'm running.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not written down, it does not exist. I will not remember it. It will no more. I have to have it written down, whether that's on a piece of paper or it's put into some sort of organized system on the computer that tells me, like, here's what's going on. Here's the things you need to complete. I was just messaging with a friend today. And was telling her we were going back and forth on talking about Airtable. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had totally forgotten. I was going to take this form that I have on my website when someone signs up for my freebie. It sends them to thank you page. And there's like a 2 question, like, hey, if you have a minute, could you just answer these 2 quick questions? It's marketing research, really. And I never connected it to Airtable. I'm like, I should, because then it's going to be easier for me to actually look at that data instead of it being just in this form plugin on my WordPress site. And I've meant to connect it. And I had the thought, I didn't write it down, and it just clicked again today. And I mean, it was maybe a year ago I had that thought, and it just floated away.
Exactly. Well, and now you think, oh, I should get all those answers that people have given in the meantime and get them in the table. But, it seems a little overwhelming and then the list is long and blah, blah, blah. There's a million reasons not to do it and you fall further behind. And yeah, you just see this self-perpetuating cycle. Like, yeah, so you just have to do it.
Just have to do it. What is your favorite system for organizing all the project information?
Ah, that's a good question. Okay, so I know, well, you brought up Airtable, and that is definitely on my list of, um, yeah, tech to try. I have Airtable, but I certainly don't utilize it to its potential. Right now, I've been using ClickUp, and I really like it. And I think I got started with Trello, so I'm still like also very fond of that. Just for the more visual people, I think it works really well. It just gives you, um, it's quite intuitive to use, whereas ClickUp can be a little more technical, a little more overwhelming. But I really like ClickUp just for like how much can go in there. You can really do everything from it, even email, which is amazing.
ClickUp is incredible. I mean, hands down, if I could go back in time, I would have set up a ClickUp, but now I'm like not on that path and I have other things I'm working on. It is definitely on my back burner to go back and implement some ClickUp in my life and my business because I've seen what it can do. And I have friends who use it, and I've been on the back end of their ClickUp, and I'm like, this is incredible. Like
Mhm.
the systems that they can create, like even just something as simple as like a support ticket
Yep.
that they've implemented, where someone in their program needs to submit a ticket, and it goes in, and auto assigns, and then you can send the emails, and you can have the templated emails in there from like, okay, this has been complete, sort of. It's incredible. I think ClickUp is amazing.
Well, and I love it too for like, how transparent it is. You can set up these systems. Maybe you're one person show right now, but you can set these things up in the hopes that one day you can pass it on to someone else and
Mhm.
everything's right there. You don't have to like think through, how do I teach them this? They can just go through and see the documentation themselves, see how it works. Everything's lined up. It's amazing.
I love ClickUp. I think that's a fantastic. I know it's very high. I used when I was doing project management for web designers, I was using a lot of Asana because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that ClickUp was really around yet back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like ClickUp is very similar to Asana, but can do so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, Asana's great too. So if that's your preference, you can do a lot with Asana. But yeah, I think ClickUp, yeah, it's really it's really got a lot of integrations and a lot of just really smart things it can do. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I've been using Airtable for my business, more in terms of like organizing things, not necessarily for like task management.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the piece that like I know that because I had everything everywhere and I could never find anything.
Yeah.
And so Jackie Money, who's been on the podcast, and Jackie was at the last retreat that you and I were both at. She came all the way from South Africa
Yeah,
to come
that's
hang out.
amazing.
And Jackie sent up my Airtable, and it's a beast. It's incredible what it can do.
And I love that. And she would have done it exactly how you need it and you can totally trust it so you can just relax and it's all going to happen how it should.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about your website
Okay.
because I know you recently went through a website refresh, rebrand.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what your website was like before and how it is after?
Yeah. So I did a DIY website many years ago, and it was absolutely exactly what I needed, and especially for a freelance writer, it had my homepage and my about me and my services and my portfolio and how to contact me. Like it was pretty much a standard website. But I got to the point where I realized, like, I am a freelance writer. I still do freelance writing. I still do services for clients, but my business has grown to the point where, yeah, like I help other freelancers now, and I have other things that I offer, and I couldn't figure out a good way to make my website like kind of do double duty, and and I came to the point where I was like, well, I actually could do this, but I don't know if it's the best use of my time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to, as one of my business investments in 2023, I'm going to invest in like having like an actual professional brand person help me with my new brand, my new website. And it was such a good call. It was for me, I mean, I could have maybe done it sort of, but this is much, much, much better than I would have ever been able to do. And also, it happened a lot faster. So the process was I hired Christy Cooper, who you also know from our mastermind, and she took me through this process of really getting into who I serve, why I do it, what drives me, what my business personality is, what I'm about. And it was pretty funny. I had to pull out a bunch of inspiration of what I thought I was most like. And I pulled out all of these like girl bosses with like bright, bold websites and, big, big personalities, big colors. And she was like, this is not you at all.
Oh,
I was like, yeah, that's accurate. And she does know me, so I really trust her judgment. And, I'm a lot quieter. I'm very introverted. I love being behind the scenes. Yeah, I'm not this big, bold personality, but I think I felt like I was supposed to be in this space. Um, and yeah, she really gave me permission just to be myself. And I think then from there, we came up with a website that is a lot more reflective of who I am and it's a lot more honest, like just in the sense of like, we chose greens and, softer kind of fall colors and just more toned down. And that's very much me. Like, just, yeah, it's not big, bright, bold, which I love. Like, I'm very drawn to that, but it's not me. And so that was a big part of the branding, just really coming to terms with who I am and who I'm not. And that's totally like just embracing that and being totally fine with it. And it's been like a really good experience. And every time I go to my website, I feel good about it. And I think before I didn't feel good about my website. I was a little embarrassed. It was a little DIY. And now this is just something that I'm happy with. And I'm like, yeah, this represents who I am.
I love that so much. What a beautiful testimonial also to Christy. I
I
will
should
make
tell her
sure
that.
I'll make sure to send her this podcast episode when it airs. I can relate so much. I mean, I build websites and I partner with a designer, but man, trying to do your own stuff is hard.
Mhm.
It's so hard. You're so close to it. You're so in it and it's hard. So I know when I redid my website a couple years ago and Amanda Cormier, who's also been on the podcast, I'll link her episode up in the show notes. Amanda did a just gorgeous design, and I have Nicole Kepik do my copy when it's time for like a copy overhaul. She just recently did some new copy, which hopefully by the time this airs, I will have found time to update my copy because the cobbler's children don't have any shoes. The web designer has an outdated website. Um, you know, but it's the feeling of really being confident in your website
Mhm.
is such a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're like in a Facebook group and people are asking for your services and you're like, and you're like, raise your hand, you're like, hey, I do that. And you share it and you're like, oh, I know they're going to look at this and be like, wow,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
work.
and I think the worst thing is, or at least what I used to experience before my website rebrand, was I didn't want to give anyone my URL at all. So I was making landing pages like elsewhere to send people, which is, I think, a sure sign that it's time for a change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a game changer. And I think it's also important, like when people are first starting out, to start with that DIY site
Yep.
because you don't know what your business is going to evolve into. And so really starting with just a foundational website and something that's simple and that can be changed later as it's time to level up and as you've gotten more clear on your offers and how you
Mhm.
help people and just the results that you get. That really is when it's time to up level and invest in having a professional come in my opinion.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, you do. You start with DIY because you're not sure yet. And yeah, you're not ready for those big investments, but you do outgrow it. And then, as I guess, I think I'm hopefully indicating like it's painful when you outgrow it. You really do know when it's time.
Yeah, that was actually like when I created my website templates, my DIY website launch kit. It was for the people who would come to me and they're like, I'm ready for a full website. And I'm like, you're just starting this business. You're not
Mm.
actually ready because
Hmm.
you're not there yet. Let's not do that. Here's a kit. Go start here, DIY it first, and then come back when you're ready, once you've figured out exactly where you're going with this. Because
Yeah.
the thing about a website is it's always evolving. It's never quote unquote done.
Yeah, that's true. And you can spend, especially when you're getting started, way too much time on your website and, tweak, 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 tweak,
Hmm.
tweak, never really being ready to go. And then you're doing that instead of getting yourself out there. And yeah, so it can be a distraction. Yeah. So you have to kind of, yeah, do like just know where you're at in your business and go that path with your website.
Absolutely. I've seen that a lot too, where people sit there and they'll like tweak the logo
Yeah.
for months,
Yeah.
years. And I'm like, no one cares. Just take a piece of text, put your name in it, and just go because you can always change it later. Like, let's get this thing going, start getting clients, and then that's
Exactly.
you can make changes later.
Yeah, exactly.
I would love to know because we talk a lot about kind of the mindset stuff that happens when you are running a business. What are some of your fears and doubts you had when you took that bridge,
Mhm.
side hustle and went full time in it?
Yeah, I think I've had like many levels of mindset kind of breakthroughs, I guess, or obstacles that I had to kind of overcome. And so the first one was, I was working full time and I was doing freelancing on the side, and I couldn't figure out how on earth do you make more than $1,000 a month? Like, it didn't make any sense in my brain. And I knew there's no way I can do this full time if that's all I'm making. And there was something in me that knew just putting in more time wasn't going to translate. So I knew there was something missing. And so, yeah, so that was the first time I was like, okay, I think I need help here. I hired a coach, like worked through some mindset blocks I had just about, we really got down into what I'm charging, the work I'm doing, how long it takes me. There was a lot of just like real talk of like, you're charging this, but break it down into how long it took you to complete. Like, is that the right price? And really just getting familiar with how long things take and not worrying about like, oh, I'm too expensive. Oh, they're not going to hire me. But really like this is what it costs because this is what I need to bring in and this is how long it takes me and I feel good about it. Um, yeah, and then just realizing also as I went through this, certain services took me too long to do. They weren't a good fit for my like work style. And so I was able to let go of those services and not offer them because the amount I would have to charge didn't make sense. There was other people who were much better at it than I was. So I just took those things off altogether and then focused on the services that gave me a better profit margin that I enjoyed doing more and I could do fairly quickly with really good results. And so once I focused my energy on that and not just trying to do everything for everyone, every time I got an inquiry, I felt at the beginning like I had to do it. And so I was just doing whatever for whoever. So getting really clear on my sweet spot was made all the difference and things clicked. And then I started earning an income that I was like, oh, okay, this could be something that I could support myself with. And then I really started to believe it. So I think it took a long time to kind of understand how it worked and then believing that I could do it. And it wasn't an accident this one time, but that
Mhm.
I could keep doing it.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such an important piece that you talked about how you started saying no to things that took you too long, you didn't really enjoy doing, and really just kind of doubled down on the things you did like doing. I
Mhm.
mean, that's so important. I know I was in the same position at one point where I was just like, yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that.
Yep.
I did Instagram or not Instagram, Pinterest management for a long time, which I did not enjoy doing. But I did it. I did anything,
Sure.
I because yeah, and
And when you're getting started, it totally makes sense because you got to try things on to know that it's not for you or to understand that this, it's too frustrating. It takes me too long. I'm actually not that good at it. You do have to try things on, but then hopefully you can move on from that.
Exactly. Well, the other thing we always love to talk about is celebrating our wins.
Hmm.
So I would love to know if you could share with our audience what is something you're really proud of that you've accomplished in your business journey, that we can celebrate you.
Sure. I think the thing that I'm realizing I'm the most proud of, even though it was never actually, it wasn't a stated goal of mine, but I was able I think it was a couple years ago, I was able to bring in six figures in my freelance business while I was working full time. And I was so, uh, like, I didn't realize how big of a milestone that was until I really started breaking it down. Like, wow, this is actually pretty awesome. And then when I started asking, like, how is this possible? I was like, it's all because of the systems. It's the only way. So very
Uh,
proud of that.
That's
Mhm.
amazing. And in going back to talking about the systems, the amount of time that I see clients spend on the admin side of their business,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, you and I were both on a call today where someone was talking about where they had a client that was not even wanting to sell their program because anytime someone would sign up, they had all this admin work they had to do on the back end to onboard the client.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can make that easy.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, right? But they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And so, yeah, isn't that a sad story? Like, doesn't it hurt your heart?
I
Oh, you don't
had
even want to sell your program because it's too much admin. Like, we can fix that.
yeah, I had a client who, when she first came to me, she would, what was it? She would send out an invoice, like they said they wanted to buy. And so she would make an invoice in PayPal, send that to them. Then she would manually, oh, what else was she doing? Oh, she had a Google form she would send them manually
Hmm.
to get all their information that she needed for them to like register for this class. So I think it was like a reply to an email saying like I want in, and then she had to go do all this manual stuff. And I mean, we were able to go in and make it so they could click, say I want to join this course. It's like a live training that she does
Hmm.
that's paid, and they could pay, fill out the form, start getting the emails, like everything just happens automagically on the background.
Love it. Love
And
it.
yeah, and she was no longer, then she was able to get more people into her programs because she had the capacity because her time was freed up.
Exactly. Well, and I'm sure at some point something got missed, an email got missed or a form got missed, and the person fell through the cracks. And yeah, that just doesn't happen when you have your system set up.
Yep. Oh, I love that. I would love to talk a little bit about what you're doing different in the industry. How are you being bold? What kind of
Mm.
sets you apart from the other freelance marketer helpers?
I think a big realization I've had, and I've kind of alluded to it a little bit in our conversation, is that a lot of freelancers don't have a system. They don't have uh, a a way that they do things every time to save themselves time and brain energy. And so I think what I do differently is that I have these systems in place and I'm truly bought into them. And that's why I think I can be productive, even though, I'm pretty busy. Everyone's pretty busy, but like I'm able to, I think for the most part, stay on top of things, not because I'm so much better, but because I have these systems in place. And yeah, I just wholeheartedly believe in them. And so I think when I talk to other freelancers, that is what I'm, pointing them at. Like, hey, I know you're super busy with all these tasks that you have to do, but what if we put them into a little software and had them there for you, like every time you opened your computer up, and just kind of planting seeds like that. And it's not something maybe a lot of people are used to just doing it themselves. They have, the paper system they trust. They have all their passwords on, this little file in their phone that, that's how they do it. They trust that. And then they're a little nervous that if they change something, they're not going to understand it, or they're going to forget it, or things aren't going to work the way they work now. So even though they're not ideal, at least it's working sort of. So that's, yeah. So I try and help people move past that and into the digital age a little bit more, just a little bit more, not in a scary way.
Well, I mean, there's so much to be said for the time that it saves that when you go and sit down at your desk and start your day, to have to already know what it is that you need to be working on right now
Yeah.
and not spend that time like getting mentally organized.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's so huge. And like, you know what, I keep saying digital, but you can absolutely do this on paper and use a planner and get the same results as long as you have the system that you're using. Yeah, that's helping you prioritize or helping you stay focused on what you need to stay focused on. That's the whole key.
Yep, absolutely. I would love to just sit here and talk to you all day long. And you know I could.
You're very easy to talk to.
But we are getting close to our time, and I do have one question I ask everyone who comes on the podcast.
Mhm.
And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give someone when they're growing and scaling their business to help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
Hmm. I think the thing I see is that a lot of, at least the people in my circle, tend to hold back what makes them great and what sets them apart. And so if I could give any advice, it's get a really clear idea of what sets you apart and don't be shy about it. Like put it out there, let people know, because you owe it to your clients and to your customers to help them in that way. That's what you're meant to do. And so be bold about that, put it out there. You're not for everyone, but the people you are for are going to be so grateful they found you.
I love that advice so much. And I think it's so important because that is like being you sets you apart from
Mhm.
everyone else and
Mhm.
really leaning into who you are and showing up as you. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Robyn. Can you tell our listeners where they can find out more about you, find out about your services, and how you can help them?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything is really at my website. So robynroste.com, just my name.com, is where you can find everything about me, plus all my links to different social media. But I'm just my name on all the social media platforms as well. And I would love to connect with you.
Wonderful. I will link that up in the show notes. Robyn, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was such a fun conversation.
Yes. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.